Hey, you said you were going to ask me questions.
That's where you get to say hello. This is gonna be a shit show.
It's going to be a shit show from hell.
All right.
Hello
Mama,
there.
thank you.
Welcome to the Buckleberry Lemonade Podcast. Due to the graphic nature of today's episode, viewer discretion is strongly advised.
On today's episode, welcome to Bucklesberry Lemonade. Today's episode, Serial Killers of North Carolina, Shadows of the Tar Heel State. We will delve into the chilling tales of serial killers haunting the landscape of North Carolina. I'm your host, Lisa, and in this episode, we'll unravel the twisted narratives of those who left a trail of fear and mystery across our old North State. But before we plunge into the depths of these dark stories, let's take a moment to understand what makes a serial killer. The term typically refers to an individual who commits a series of 2 or more murders over a period of time, often with a distinctive modus operandi. These perpetrators are driven by psychological factors, leaving communities gripped in fear as they strive to elude law enforcement. North Carolina, with its picturesque landscapes and charming towns, has been no stranger to the omnipresence of these malevolent figures. As we embark on this journey, we'll explore the macabre tales that have unfolded within the state's borders. Now, the thought may send shivers down your spine, but have you ever wondered how many serial killers might be lurking in your midst? Statistics suggest that an estimated 2,000 serial killers may be active in the United States at any given time. Shockingly, you could unknowingly cross paths with one of these dark figures during your lifetime. Join us as we navigate through the shadows of North Carolina, uncovering the chilling stories that may be closer than you think. To Bucklesberry Lemonade. I am Lisa, and I've got my co-host and loving husband Tim here with me.
Hey everybody, thank you for joining us today on Bucklesberry Lemonade. Looks like we got quite a show today.
Yes, it does.
North Carolina serial killers. This ought to be a pretty interesting one. You know, great intro you did for the show. In looking this up, I'll read a little statistic for you before we dive right in on Velma Barfield. But
Okay.
in North Carolina, 2023, there was 991 homicides in North Carolina.
Wow.
Check this out. 295 of them possibly could be linked to the work of a serial killer.
200 of them? Oh, wow.
295
Mm.
could be linked to the work of a serial killer in our little part of the world in North Carolina.
Makes you scared, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. You know, there's statistics I put together for you. What do you think about that? That you might walk by 35 murderers in your lifetime? That's scary.
It is very scary because you never know. You never ever know who you're actually. It could be somebody you know, and you never know.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the famous serial killers that were married.
Oh, I hope you're not trying to tell me something.
What about wives with knives? How about that?
I am canceling your ID subscription tonight.
No, you're not. I love that. You know that.
And you know, we agreed in talking about this last night when we were talking about another famous case that we're going to do later for a podcast, and that would be the case of Billy White, a very well-known insurance agent here in eastern North Carolina. And The people responsible for murdering him, I have in fact had a conversation with them. So I have walked past 2 murderers that I personally know of already.
And see, that shows you just never know. I mean,
They don't.
you really don't know.
You don't. And we'll save that for another day and get on that. But I did find those statistics pretty interesting. And the other statistic was there are anywhere from 25 to 50 serial killers walking around in the USA right now.
That is, I'm just, that is amazing. That is.
It's crazy. Were you ready to get right into it?
We might as well.
And it looks like we're going to talk about Velma Barfield first.
Yes, Miss Barfield.
Yeah. And not only was she a serial killer in North Carolina, but she is the first woman to be executed by lethal injection.
Yep. She was born in Eastover, North Carolina. She was raised near Fayetteville.
Mm-hmm.
She was born in 32 and she died November 2nd in 84. Bless her heart.
And it looks like she was convicted of 1 murder, but eventually confessed to 6 murders in total.
Yep.
And it looks like her span of crimes were from 1969 to 1978. So she was busy. But in doing the research for this, it doesn't look like she started out to be I guess what I'm trying to say, there was nothing in her background that suggested she would grow or end up being a serial killer. It looks
Well,
like
now her father reportedly was physically abusive and her mother did not intervene.
yeah,
She escaped by marrying Thomas Burke in 49,
yeah.
and they had 2 children. And happy until she had a hysterectomy and developed back pain, and then that led to behavioral changes in her, and she eventually had a drug addiction. So therefore,
And
she
that's
had,
what I mean. I think that was her trigger. I mean,
yeah,
unfortunately, back in that day, women did suffer a lot of abuse.
they did. I
They
think so.
they weren't treated as an equal in a partnership or anything like that. They were pretty much treated like property. And this hysterectomy probably was the beginning of her changes and then
Yeah.
drug addiction. And it looks like that Burke, her husband, started to drink.
And they had bitter arguments.
Mm-hmm.
And he had passed out, and she took the children and left the house. And when they returned, they found the structure burned, and he was dead.
Yep. Yep. And I think that was her way of saying good riddance, you SOB.
I think so.
Yep. And so in 1970, looks like Miss Velma married a widower. His name is Jennings Barfield. And let me point this out too, because I thought this was interesting. And you may have saw it, I'm not sure. But Jonathan Boyd is the grandson of Jennings Barfield. And he is a singer-songwriter. He has an album called Wildflowers. And he has a song on there on that album called Velma. And it gives a personal account of the murders and investigations involving Velma Barfield.
I did not know that. I'm going to have to listen to that then.
Mm-hmm. And looks like a year after she married Jennings Barfield, he
died from heart complications
on March 22nd, 1971. And then it looks like in 1974, Lillian Bullard, who would have been Jennings Barfield's mother, Velma's mother-in-law, began to mysteriously show signs of intense
diarrhea
and vomiting and nausea. And she would recover a few days later. But during the Christmas season, she fell ill again with the same symptoms. And when she died, I missed my note here. December 30th, 1974. So now the mother-in-law's gone and the son-in-law's gone, and we've got the first husband dead.
In
And
75, now she was convicted of 7 counts of writing bad checks and sentenced to 6 months in prison. And she was released after serving 3 months.
And how do you wonder from a psychological point, those 3 months in prison, how'd that affect her? So you can see where we're definitely, the road is starting to darken here.
Yeah.
In 1976, she began caring for the elderly and began working for Montgomery and Dolly Edwards in Lumberton, North Carolina, where Mr. Montgomery fell ill and died on January 29th, 1977. So she's picking up a lot of steam now.
Yeah, she is. Bless her heart. It makes you wonder what goes on in somebody's mind.
Yeah, I mean, it really does. I mean, we have a huge fascination, all of us, in a weird kind of way.
Yeah.
But it doesn't, and I think that's part of the fascination. What makes you tick? What makes you do something so far out of the norm?
She fell ill. The one she started taking care of, she fell ill and died. And a month after the death of her husband, Dolly experienced symptoms identical to those of Bullard and died on March 1st. And then she later confessed to the murder of Dolly Edwards. The following year, Barfield took another caretaker job, this time for 76-year-old Record Lee, who had broken her leg. On June 4th, 1977, Lee's husband, John Henry, began experiencing racking pains in his stomach and chest, along with vomiting and diarrhea. And now he died soon afterward. And then Barfield later confessed to his murder.
Yeah.
Gosh.
Busy. Another victim was Roland Stewart Taylor, who he was Barfield's boyfriend and a relative of Dolly Edwards. And she feared that he had discovered she had been forging checks on his account. So she mixed an arsenic-based rat poison into his beer and tea.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm. And he died, looks like he died on February 3rd, 1978, while she was trying, in parentheses, to nurse him back to health. An autopsy found a huge amount of arsenic in his system. After her arrest, the body of Jennings Barfield was exhumed and found to have traces of, guess what?
Arsenic.
A murder that Barfield denied having committed. Although she did in time confess to the murders of Lillian Bullard, Dolly Edwards, and John Henry Lee. She was only tried and convicted for the murder of Ronald Stewart Taylor. That's the only one she was tried and convicted for. So she's a little unique in a way. I mean, 3's the magic number to be a serial killer. Isn't that correct?
I think so. I think it is.
And we'll get into, maybe not this show, but another show, the spree killers and mass murderers and things like that. But for now, we tried to keep it just to the serial killers. But I mean, it's pretty obvious that she did kill more than just the one person she was convicted of.
Yeah, very true.
Now the first guy, her first husband, if he was just not being a good guy and beating her and things like that.
That's not. I'm not saying I do not condone somebody killing somebody.
No, I don't.
Beat him, and get out of it. But no, don't kill him. Hit him upside the head. No, I'm joking. No, I'm really joking.
I'm not. He needs his ass whooped.
Well, get somebody else to whoop his ass. You get out of there.
Looks like she got out of there and burnt the house down.
That sounds like what she did, but it's never saying that's what she did. But I mean, they left, the house burnt down. They come back and the house is burnt and they're dead. It kind of, it implies that.
Yeah. Well, Velma Barfield was imprisoned at Central Prison in Raleigh, North Carolina, in an area for escape prone prisoners and the mentally ill.
Because they had no death row unit for women back then.
Yeah, there's nowhere to put
And
her.
that's where we were growing up. By that time, we were young. I mean, we were young. I remember back in that time, but I don't remember her. I don't remember any of that talk.
I I remember some of it. I do. It says during her stay on death row, she became a devout Christian.
And Billy Graham even tried to get her. He tried to he praised her, and I guess that he tried to help her get a stay of execution. Um,
And then it didn't work. There was also some political controversy. Our late Governor Jim Hunt uh,
yeah,
was challenging Jesse Helms for his U.S. Senate seat.
and that's why they believe that he wouldn't. I mean, because she had more than one person. I mean, she had changed, and well, what the second basis for the appeal was the testimony of Dorothy. I don't want to um,
You can stick with Dorothy Lewis.
Lewis, yeah, because her middle name, I'll mess it up. Professor of psychiatry at New York University School of Medicine and an authority on violent behavior, she claimed that Barfield suffered from dissociative identity disorder, and she testified that she had spoken to Barfield's other personality, Billy, who oops, hold on, my screen moved just a second. Um, testified that she had spoken to Barfield's other personality, Billy, who told her that Velma had been a victim of sexual abuse and that Billy, had killed her abusers. The judge was unconvinced. One of them did it, Lewis quoted him as saying, I don't care which one.
Mm-hmm.
And after her appeal was denied in federal court, she instructed her attorneys to abandon a further appeal to the U.S. Supreme Court.
Let's talk about that for a minute. You know, as we were growing up, you remember the movie Sybil?
Yep.
And she had um, we grew up hearing the term split personality.
Yeah.
Now,
Multiples
yeah,
split.
now it's dissociative identity disorder, but she supposedly had 16.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and so let's say Mrs. Barfield had Billy. Let's just say it was one.
Yeah.
Well, when the mind splinters off like that, it usually splinters off because it is dealing with a trauma that the only way that trauma is so intense, the only way to deal with that trauma is to splint off and create another identity who is stronger to handle it. So obviously the judge shot this down. So I don't really know why. It could have been that these things were so prevalent being thrown around at the time that he kind of saw a smoke screen. Maybe it was a smoke screen.
But how do we know?
How do we know? But the thing that's interesting there, okay, let's just say she did leave the house with the kids. Okay,
Uh-huh.
she did leave the house with the kids, and that was our little sound effect right there, I guess. But
Okay. Yeah. Sorry.
she left the house with the kids. What if Billy is the one that came back and burned that house to the ground?
And where were the kids though?
Well, Billy had them taken care of. My point is, if she truly suffered from this, and we don't know that she did, okay, I'm just playing the devil's advocate here. She wouldn't have known, and that would point to a lot of things would have went on in her lifetime for her.
And she didn't know.
And she would have developed a split personality. I'm still using the terms that we grew up with. I guess I should say dissociative identity disorder, but that's what she grew, or that's what we grew up with. But what if she had been experiencing abuse from an early age, and over time developed this dissociative identity disorder, and it was really the other alter ego that was committing the crimes?
Yes, I believe it's possible. I don't know enough about it to say it's not, but we don't know what goes on in somebody's mind. I mean, it's been proven there's a lot that can happen in a mind.
Yeah.
So,
According to some statistics, or to some, just doing a little general reading on the fly while we're talking, early
okay.
childhood trauma, typically before the age of 10, can place someone at risk of developing dissociative identity disorder. And that can go across a diverse geographical region. And 90% of all individuals who have been diagnosed with dissociative identity disorder report
Uh-huh.
experiencing multiple forms of childhood abuse, and severe bullying, neglect, violence, SA, sexual assault. So, and check this out. And sometimes a traumatic childhood experience, such as a painful surgical procedure, can trigger it,
Yeah.
as well as, cults, occult, things like that. So that's one of those things that just, I don't know, that just stuck out to me like a sore thumb. I
Yeah.
wonder if any of that, and it could have been, they're just trying to get her out of prison. I don't know, but it looks like in
She
her,
would have never got out of prison. She'd have stayed in prison, but she would have stayed there for life. She would have not been executed.
maybe so, yeah.
No, they said they were trying to get it uh, commuted to life.
But it looks like toward the end of her life, she
She,
turned things
yeah, go ahead.
doesn't it? I mean, that's what it looks like.
Yeah, I think she was really trying because after her appeal, like I said she didn't want to do anymore. She released a statement before her execution, and she said, I know that everybody has gone through a lot of pain, all the families connected. I'm sorry, and I want to thank everybody who has been supporting me all these 6 years. And she chose as her last meal cheese doodles and a Coca Cola. And it says she was buried in a small rural North Carolina cemetery near her first husband, Thomas Burke.
I got to tell you, out of everybody we researched for this, I and I don't want to get flamed for it. Okay, I feel a little bit sorry for this one.
I kind of do too, because we don't know exactly. I mean, she could have been evil to the core.
Very much
But,
so.
and
Could have been 100% walking evil. And guys, we're not the kind of people that just say, "Oh, the serial killer, this and that and the other." We believe that if you commit murder is
life.
a crime. It's a sin. You shouldn't be going around cutting people. I mean, it's just stuff you shouldn't do. So when I say I'm not being oh, woe's me, her background, her childhood, I'm not saying any of that. None of these people deserve to die on any
None
level.
of it. No.
It's just,
No.
she strikes me as the kind of person the deck was just stacked against her from the damn word go. And that's what I mean when I say feel sorry.
Yeah, and I don't there's reason. There's some in her mind. I just think if she'd gotten some help or something,
Maybe
I don't think I think the people would have been alive, and
if
she'd have been happier. Her mind would have been
she'd have been,
more at ease.
yeah, she'd have could have lived in another era, I guess.
Yeah, I think so.
Speaking of people who poison.
Well, she was one. There was another. And this was Miss Blanche. Blanche, what was her last name? I
Blanche
didn't.
Taylor Moore.
And she is still alive and in prison.
It looks like she's about to turn 91.
Is that how old she is?
Yeah.
Oh,
February 17th, 1933. That would put her around 91 in February.
Oh, wow.
So,
Blanche Taylor Moore. She was born, she's getting ready to have a birthday, February 17th.
yeah. And it looks like she's got hers is a little convoluted, just like Velma Barfield's was, in that it could be one person. She could have killed four. But she's still waiting execution in North Carolina for the fatal poisoning of her boyfriend in 1986. She's also suspected in the death of her father, her mother-in-law, and her first husband, and the attempted murder of her second husband in 1989. So Miss Blanche Taylor Moore has been busy as well.
She is just, the span of her crimes was from 68 to 89. Wow.
She's busy. Alamance County. So,
Uh-huh.
I'll read a little bit here. Looks like from our notes, Blanche Taylor Moore was born Blanche Kaiser in Concord, North Carolina, February 17th, 1933. Her parents were Parker Davis Kaiser. I hope I'm pronouncing that. It might be Kisser. A mill worker and ordained Baptist minister. Flonnie Blanche Kaiser was her mother, and it looks like her dad, imagine this, was a womanizer.
You know something? Back then, I ain't saying that because most men now, but back then, and they got away with it.
Yep.
You know, just like I know men were dogs. They treated women any way they wanted to.
Yeah, he's supposed to be a Baptist preacher, but he was a known womanizer and alcoholic. And
He forced her into prostitution to pay his debts, gambling debts.
That's
wow.
What he claimed. Yeah. He died reportedly of a heart attack in 1966. As a youth, Moore was known to switch from quoting scripture to sexually explicit topics in the same.
Oh, is she going to play like she's got?
But you go back to that childhood, you see that weird, creepy child. You grow up in a home to where your dad is a gambler. If he forced her into prostitution, he's forced her into prostitution. Again, the women are being treated like property. He's an alcoholic. He's abusive, and the whole time he's going about, I'm gonna beat the hell out of you while I preach heaven to you. I mean, that's what it looks like.
Yep, exactly.
So,
wow.
Break down those murders for us on the notes there I've got for you.
Okie dokie. On May 29th, she married James Napoleon Taylor. He was a veteran and furniture restorer. They had two children, one in 53 and one in 59. She began working as a cashier at a grocery store. She had been promoted to head cashier in 62, and she began having an affair with Raymond Reed, the store manager. Taylor died on October 2nd, 73, and as with her father 7 years earlier, the cause of death was reported as a heart attack.
Old Taylor had to go.
Yeah, because she had another man in the back of the store.
I'm damn head cashier, and I want the store manager.
That's it. Okay, after her husband's death, Moore and Reed began dating publicly. By 85, however, the relationship had soured. There are indications that she began to date Robert J. Hutton. Oh my, the store's regional manager from the Piedmont. That's right. However, that relationship ended, and she filed a sexual harassment lawsuit against Hutton and the store in October 1985. Boy, she's going for it all, ain't she?
Hell
He
yeah.
was forced to resign, and the store settled the case out of court 2 years later for $275,000. In 1985, Moore also accused an unknown pervert of starting 2 fires that damaged her mobile home.
I tell you right now, you can see it. Oh, Taylor. I mean, Miss Blanche is busy. Blanche
Yeah,
Taylor
I
Moore
think
is
Miss
busy.
Blanche is I think Miss Blanche is a little bit different than Miss Velma. Two
But
hundred.
yeah, they to be so night and day. I mean, to be accused of the same thing. There are a lot of similarities to them. Actually, when you look at it, they were born within a year of each other. You know,
Uh-huh.
and that's kind of crazy. But when you do the research on these serial killers, you see a power play kind of play out. They want to be in control. They want everything the way they want them. You can kind of see this. I'm head cashier. Now I want the store manager. Got the store manager. I want to hit Hutton on the button and go for the regional.
Okay, well now we're not done yet. Let's
Go
keep
ahead.
going. Okay. On
Go ahead.
Easter Sunday, Moore met the Reverend Dwight Moore,
Oh, snap.
the divorced pastor of the Carolina United Church of Christ in rural, I've never been able to say that word, Alamance County. The two began meeting for meals. Moore had to conceal this relationship because her lawsuit against Kroger maintained that she was completely alienated and antagonistic towards men and has not been able to maintain any meaningful social contacts with the opposite sex. While she was dating Dwight, she asked him to procure some arsenic based ant killer.
Woo! And see, here's the thing. Hey, I just met this really nice girl. She's sweet. Now, unfortunately, she got a lot of murders that she may have done, may not have done. Where's his flag?
I don't know. I mean,
And
I,
then, hey, Dwight, hey, when you out visiting the sick and
now
praying
I'm
for
trying to figure out though, why is she not able to? Who said she can't see anybody?
she filed a lawsuit against Kroger when she accused the regional manager of sexual harassment. That's part of it.
Oh, that
So
she was.
she had to hide this affair with the pastor because that would ruin her case. Money. It would have ruined
Okay, got
her
you.
chance to get money. So what she basically did was when she met Reverend Dwight Moore, um, I guess maybe he was too scared to tell her, hey, I don't want to date you. I don't know. Or maybe he was just that lonely. But at the end of the day, she did ask him to procure some arsenic based.
He's getting ready to get in trouble himself, or Dwight is, or the store manager. Somebody is.
I guess discernment ain't one of his spiritual gifts.
It ain't. In '86, let's see. Reed developed. What did Reed develop? He developed something.
Shingles. He developed shingles.
He did. Yeah. He was hospitalized in April and died in October 7th. And Moore and Dwight began seeing each other publicly.
Now see that Reed being the store manager, he doctors indicate cause of death was Guillain-Barré syndrome.
Oh, wow.
And it's a rapid onset of muscle weakness caused by the immune system damaging the peripheral nervous system. Typically, both sides of the body are involved, and the initial symptoms are changes in sensation or pain. Wow.
The lawsuit with her previous employer was settled 1 year later. Moore and Dwight planned to marry, but she was diagnosed with breast cancer in '87. The wedding date was pushed to November of '88, but Moore developed a mysterious intestinal ailment that required 2 surgeries to correct. On April 19th, '89, the couple were married. and had a honeymoon in New Jersey. Within days of their return, her husband became severely ill and collapsed after eating a fast food chicken sandwich that Moore had given him.
Mm.
Yes, it is. It is. Um, that is very much so. We have a problem.
All right. Well, let's take a break and we will resume right after this.
Thank you. In 2 minutes and 2 seconds.
We apologize for that. We just had a few technical difficulties in the studio, but we are back. Thank you. And
Okie dokie. Thank you for bearing with us, and let us continue.
we left off. It looks like she'd given poor old Dwight a fast food chicken sandwich.
And it was not, as you said, Chick-fil-A.
Mm-mm.
After several days of extreme nausea and vomiting, he was admitted to Alamance County Hospital on April 28th of 89. And for the next 2 days, he was transferred between Alamance County and North Carolina Baptist Hospital in Winston-Salem. He was then admitted to North Carolina Memorial Hospital in Chapel Hill, where his condition deteriorated to the point of near death. He had told doctors he had been working with herbicide soon after the honeymoon. And then doctors Lucas Wong, Jonathan, oh my goodness, Srodi, and I'm not trying to butcher nobody's name, Mark Murphy and George Sanders, after discussions with a hospital toxologist, ordered a toxology screen to check for herbicidal poisoning. The results came back on March 13th, showing Dwight had 20 times the lethal dose of arsenic in his system, the most arsenic found in a living patient in the hospital's history. He had a partially robust constitution and survived, but still suffered after effects in his hands and legs as recently as 2010.
She meant to kill him. Well, I think you're getting ready to touch on it.
You go ahead. You have at it.
Well, with Guillain-Barré or Barré syndrome, there's something that can mimic that. So, the hospital and the North Carolina State Bureau of Investigation notified the police of Dwight's toxology results. When being interviewed by police from his hospital bed, he did mention that a former boyfriend of Moore's died from Guillain-Barré syndrome. And guys, if we've butchered that, forgive us, but
we're trying.
It presents similar symptoms to arsenic poisoning. So, it sounds like the guy that the store manager that she had the affair with and then charged sexual harassment. This is what this guy died from. So she was poisoning him.
She meant to kill everybody. She meant to kill.
Yes.
She would have killed this man too. I mean, God was on his side.
Investigators discovered Moore had attempted to change Dwight's pension to make herself the principal beneficiary.
Wow.
In light of these revelations, exhumations of Taylor, Reed, and her father were ordered by the investigators. Autopsies showed elevated levels of arsenic in all three bodies.
During interviews, Moore stated that both Taylor and Reed felt depressed and suggested they had probably been taking arsenic themselves. They were taking it themselves.
Yeah.
Something investigators found highly improbable.
Yep. Therefore, their deaths were reclassified as the result of arsenic poisoning. It also came out that doctors at Baptist Hospital, where Reed was admitted in 1986, had ordered a toxology screen for him, However, on the day the test came back, the resident responsible for Reed's care rotated to another hospital, and the new resident never passed the results to the chain of command.
Oh.
These results would have shown an extremely high level of arsenic in his system. Ooh, I hope that family had a lawsuit on that one.
I hope so.
I haven't found anything on it, but that doesn't,
That doesn't mean anything. I hope they did. I sure hope.
During interviews, Moore stated that both Taylor and Reed felt depressed, like you said, and took the arsenic themselves. And that's something that the investigators they just don't think it happened that way. And she was sleeping with Reed around the same time she began dating Dwight. And it raised questions about her possible involvement with Reed's death.
Oh, I have no doubt. Even though I was not there, I have no doubt.
They show you how smart she is, though. She also had Dwight's hair cut to prevent hair samples from being obtained by the SBI. She had a way of manipulating these men and literally wrapping them around her finger. So
she is some.
They used samples of pubic hair, and that's what was used instead. And on July 18th, 1989, Moore was arrested and charged with first-degree murder in the deaths of Taylor and Reed. She also was charged with assault with a deadly weapon for the poisoning of Dwight. Prosecutors later dropped the charges in the case of Taylor and Dwight after she was sentenced
to death. Good. Good. She adamantly denied giving Reed any food while he was hospitalized, but the state introduced 53 witnesses who testified the opposite.
She's going up to the hospital. Hey, I know we're mad with each other and everything, but I still love you. You still love me? Yeah. You bring me a chicken sandwich.
Yeah, give me another chicken sandwich. I think I'll take one. Let me see if you got some more arsenic to give me.
That is just crazy. They introduced 53 witnesses who testified the opposite. The state had an easier time making such a complex case because Reed's ex-wife and sons. There we go.
Yes, there it is.
There
it is. They sued them, yes.
I thought I had okay, well, that's what happens with old age.
Yes,
What are you trying to say?
No.
Anyway, the Reed family argued that Moore fraudulently prevented them from finding out about the test. Long-standing precedent in U.S. courts holds that statute of limitations do not apply when the defendant engages in fraudulent concealment.
She was convicted on November 14th, 1990. On November 17th, the jury recommended the death penalty. January 18th, 1991, the presiding judge concurred with the jury and sentenced Moore to die by lethal injection. She currently resides at the North Carolina Correctional Institute for Women as prisoner number 0288088. In prison, she has written music and spends time writing poetry. Health issues have required her to undergo both chemotherapy and radiation therapy. Because of the automatic appeals in process, she has avoided execution for over 31 years. She maintains her innocence to this day.
You want to go over her attorney, or you want me to do that one?
You can do that one.
So, and this was interesting. So, one of her attorneys, David Tamer, had misappropriated client funds, including hers. He was convicted of embezzlement. He also had a history of psychological problems. He better be glad she was in prison, because she'd have
killed him.
She'd have poisoned his ass.
Yeah. Let me take you a chicken sandwich.
Hey, how about when you come visit today, you go through that drive-through over there at Chick-fil-A or Popeyes, and I'll put the seasoning on it. Don't worry about that. Good old KFC for you and me.
You and me and KFC.
In 2010, more than 11 other death row inmates from Forsyth County filed a motion to convert their sentences to life imprisonment, and that's still being worked on. Interestingly enough, though, her health issues, she's had both chemo and radiation therapy, and because of automatic appeals in progress, she has avoided execution for 31 years.
Yep. Bless her heart. Discovery Channel's The New Detective series season 4, episode 6, Women Who Kill, featured Blanche Taylor Moore's crimes. Her crimes were portrayed in the Evil Lives Here episode, The Black Widow.
Yeah, there was a book written called The Preacher's Girl. It's the author claims to have found evidence that seems to indicate Moore set up Hutton, the original store manager, not the regional, but the store manager.
Uh-huh.
That she set him up in the sexual harassment suit and may have intentionally set 2 fires. And later that year, Elizabeth Montgomery played Moore in the television film based movie based on the book Black Widow Murderers, the Blanche Taylor Moore story.
Wow.
So, Miss
Moore, Blanche Taylor Moore,
has been busy.
she's not busy now.
Well, she is.
I hope she has made her peace.
It's just crazy. All right, let's shift gears here. Let's get into two women serial killers. Let's talk about some of the male serial killers. You want to talk about
Okay.
Goldsboro one, the Edgecombe County, or you want to talk about the Taco Bell killer?
I'm trying to find one. We can the Taco Bell killer. Well, that's going to be up to you. I'm trying to find the Wikipedia one. Discover something. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. All right. So, Taco Bell strangler, Henry Louis Wallace. Born November 4th, 1965. He was actually born in South Carolina. That's where he grew up. He was also a disc jockey. He went into the Navy in 85, married his high school sweetheart in 1987, and in 1988, he was honorably discharged from the Navy. He is currently in Central Prison in Raleigh, North Carolina, awaiting execution. And he has been charged with killing 11 women in North and South Carolina from March
9 counts, 8. He's 8 counts rape. Convictions. These are his convictions.
Mm-hmm.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you.
Huh? I can't hear you. That's okay. March 8th, 1990, span to March 8th, 94.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
Okay.
But what I've found is he's first degree murder. He's got 9 counts. First degree rape, 8. Second degree rape, first degree sexual assault offense, 2 counts of that.
Yep. Yeah, and it looks like when he was in the Army, the Navy, that pretty much started his criminal career.
Oh, and, did it? Okay.
He used a lot of drugs in the Navy, crack cocaine. He was served several warrants for burglaries. In 1988, Wallace was arrested for breaking into a hardware store. That June, he pled guilty to second-degree burglary, and he was sentenced to 2 years probation. So, again, things changed for him. So,
let's talk about.
It does say that he did grow up in an abusive home. The abuse was at the hands of his mother, Lottie Mae Wallace.
Oh,
She worked
really?
she worked long hours as a textile worker, and she would criticize him even for the smallest things. He was a cheerleader and student council. He graduated in 1983 and even became a disc jockey for a little while.
Oh,
But on March 8th,
1990.
go into that a little bit, if you will.
He murdered 18-year-old Tashonda Bethia, a Barnwell High School student. He then dumped her body in a lake in his hometown. It was not until several weeks later that her corpse was discovered. Wallace was questioned by the police regarding her disappearance and death, but was never formally charged with her murder. Then he was also questioned about the attempted rape of a 16-year-old Barnwell girl, but was never charged for that. And then by that time, his marriage to Moretta had fallen apart. He was later fired from working as a chemical operator for Sandoz Chemical Company.
Mm-hmm. And then
So,
1991, he likes to return back to the high school. It looks like
it does.
he broke into Barnwell High School and the radio station he once worked at as a disc jockey, stealing valuable video and recording equipment, and was caught trying to pawn them.
Yep. In 91, he relocated to Charlotte, North Carolina, and he found jobs at several fast food restaurants in North Carolina. In East Charlotte before becoming a manager at a Taco Bell near the now defunct Eastland Mall. In May of 92, he picked up 33-year-old Sharon.
Good thing he didn't meet Taylor Blanche Moore. His ace would have got poisoned.
Yeah, she took care of him. Wouldn't have had to worry about him. He picked up 33-year-old Sharon Nance, a convicted drug dealer and prostitute. He beat her to death when she asked for payment for her services, then dropped her body by railroad tracks. She was found a few days later.
Man, that's all.
Hey, he's cruel. I mean, hey, at least the women, they were kind of clean about it.
Yeah, man, poison you. Looks like in June of 1992, he raped and strangled Caroline Love. She was around 20 years old at her apartment. He dumped her in a wooded area. Love was a friend of Wallace's girlfriend. She was also his girlfriend's roommate and a college student. She had worked at Bojangles. There's that chicken sandwich again.
Uh-huh.
At the time of her disappearance. After he killed her, Wallace, his girlfriend, and sister filed a missing report at the police station. It was almost 2 years, March 1994, before her body was discovered in a wooded area in Charlotte. He went right there with them and filed a missing persons report.
And he knew exactly where she was.
Exactly where she was at.
And then on February 19th in 93, he strangled 20-year-old Shauna Hawk, a college student, at her home after first raping her and later went to her funeral. Hawk had worked at Taco Bell where Wallace was her supervisor.
I tell you, this guy...
He's cold. He's cold. He's heartless. He has no soul.
I mean, that is just... On June 22nd of the same year, Wallace raped and strangled his Taco Bell co-worker and manager, Audrey Spain. She was 24. She was found June 25th of the same year. I mean...
He kept right on because are you talking about June? On August 10th, 93, the same year, he raped and strangled Valencia M. Jumper, a 21-year-old college student from Columbia, South Carolina. I mean, he's jumping from north to south, but he's still doing it.
But you know the other thing too, I know you've caught this. He he looks for the best opportunity, and when that opportunity presents itself, because notice everybody that he has known, well, except for maybe the prostitute and drug dealer, and he could have known her. He's
Could
known
have.
he's known all these people.
Hey, I know.
I mean, can you imagine one day you're talking about shift change and have we got enough staff? And
And then the next day, he's
he's killed.
killed somebody. He's killed him. I mean, somebody you're supposed to trust. That's what I'm saying. You never know.
I mean, he just, I don't know. That's just crazy.
It is.
And then as we look further, we dig a little deeper. A month later, September 14th, 1993, Wallace went to the apartment of 20-year-old Michelle Stinson, a college student, and you'll never get this. You can never guess this. A friend of his
From Taco Bell.
from Taco Bell.
But no, let's go back to where I was at first. We jumped a little bit. He did something different with Valencia. He set her body on fire
To
to
cover up.
cover up the crime.
And then went to the funeral, even sending her family condolences.
Can you believe that? That is cold-blooded.
That is just...
That's evil.
So we go forward a little bit in time. We're up to February 4th, 1994. He's arrested for shoplifting, but the police didn't make a connection with the murders.
Yeah.
And and I guess it's got to do in the time that they're finding the bodies. But you look for one familial link in all of this. And you've got people that are working at Taco Bell, people are working at Bojangles, they're all working in fast food. And then you've got this manager who you've got people working around him, and now they're dying. They're being found dead. And then he gets caught shoplifting.
I know.
How can somebody not say, hey, when we talked about Michelle Stinson, when we talked about Audrey Spain, didn't they all work at the same Taco Bell with this guy? It looks like the police would have said, somebody would have said, hey,
somebody at this Taco Bell is killing now. How many men work here? How many women? Who's still living?
And maybe it's not that easy. Maybe there's so much more to that. Just being on the outside, I'm expecting it to look easy. I don't know.
I don't know either.
I'm not a police detective. I don't claim to be one, and nor do I know I would want to be one.
I don't think I would want to be one. I did want to be one. Not a police detective. I wanted to be a CSI.
You'd have been a good one. So, let's go forward a little bit.
Where are we at? Okay.
He was arrested for shoplifting. They didn't make a connection. January 20th, 1994, a day after Shauna's mother appealed to the public for her daughter's murderer, Wallace raped and strangled Vanessa Little Mack, 25, in her Charlotte apartment. He knew her through her sister, who was a co-worker of his at Taco Bell. Now, you got to think about this too. I mean, he's managed to get close to all these co-workers and these friends of his co-workers. This guy must have been smooth. He must have silver-tongued.
On March 8th, he robbed, raped, and strangled 24-year-old Betty Jean Baucom a day after her birthday. Baucom and Wallace's girlfriend were co-workers at Bojangles, where she was the assistant manager. After Wallace murdered her, he took a considerable number of valuables from the house and then left the apartment with her car. He pawned everything except the car, which he left at a local shopping center. Now, if he pawned the stuff, Why couldn't the pawn shops, you have to show ID, blah, blah, blah. Wouldn't that make sense?
It would, but I mean, how would they be able to trace that stuff back to her? I mean, there was a time people would engrave numbers on their belongings and shit like that, and you could go to a pawn shop and say, "Hey, that drill over there on the counter, will you look on the other side? Does it say ABC 313? It's my drill." Um, I
He
can
would. He
see.
also, let me say this too. He also returned to the same apartment complex on March 8th, knowing that Bernice Woods would be at work so he could murder Woods' girlfriend, Brandy June Henderson, an 18-year-old high school student, homemaking, and mother of Woods' child. Wallace raped Henderson while she held her baby and then strangled her. He also strangled her son, who survived.
This thing
He
is a sack
he
of shit.
he is nothing but
He
pure evil.
he is a sack of shit.
Yes, I just wow.
I
That's enough to make you mad.
that
That's enough to make you want to go find him yourself.
that's enough to make you want to sit here and just throw up. That
Yeah, can you?
there's some. I mean, okay. All right, let me reel myself in. The police increased their patrols in East Charlotte after two bodies of young women were found in the Lake Apartments complex. Even so, Wallace managed to sneak in and rob and strangle Deborah Ann Slaughter, 35, who also had been his girlfriend's co-worker. He raped, strangled, and stabbed her 38 times in the stomach and chest before taking the money from the apartment for drugs. She was found March 12th, 1994.
I'm glad he finally was arrested.
Yeah. On March 13th, 1994, for 12 hours, he confessed to the murders of 10 women in Charlotte. He then confessed to an 11th murder he committed before moving to Charlotte. Wallace described in details the women's appearances as well as how he went about the robbing, killing, and raping of all of them. That's wow. That's prolific.
That is very, yeah.
And it's just you look to connect the dots. We talk about it all the time. Nobody interviewing anybody at Bojangles and says, hey, your boyfriend's a little too friendly with some of the staff here at Bojangles when you ain't around. I mean, I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know either.
So, Charlotte Police Chief rejoiced at Wallace's arrest, reassuring the community that the women of East Charlotte were safe. However, many in the area's black community criticized the police's conduct during the investigation, accusing them of neglecting the murders of black women. One woman stated that police did not care because they viewed the young female victims as fast girls who hung out a lot. The victims weren't prominent people with social economic status. They weren't special. Charlotte Police Chief Dennis Norwicki has said he was unaware of a killer until early March 1994, where 3 black women were murdered within 4 days. The Charlotte Mecklenburg Police Department apologized to the Charlotte citizens for not spotting a link between the murders sooner. However, that said, the murder varied enough to throw them off Wallace's trail until Wallace's murder pace picked up in the early weeks of March 1994. I mean, he definitely escalated.
It did.
The deaths were sporadic and not entirely similar. And I can see that they're not entirely similar. I can see that. But you got so many connections between Taco Bell and Bojangles that
You got that, yeah. Yep.
go trial, and we'll wrap this up and we'll go into a part 2.
Okay, aftermath trial. And then it took over 2 years. His case was delayed over the choice of the venue, DNA evidence for murder victims, and jury selection. His trial began in September, finally, of 96. In the opening arguments, prosecutor Marcia Goodnow argued for the death penalty. Should have. At the same time, defense attorney Isabel Day asked for a life sentence, arguing that Wallace suffered from mental illness and that the killings were not first-degree murder because they did not result from premeditation and deliberation. Let's not aim. If elected, according to FBI serial murder profiler Robert Ressler, if he elected to become a serial killer, he was going about it the wrong way. Mr. Wallace always seemed to take one step forward and two steps back. He would take items and put them in the stove to destroy them by burning them and then forget to turn the stove on. I didn't understand that, but okay. In 1994, police had asked the FBI for assistance, but the FBI said the murders were not the work of a serial killer. Bull crap. Psychologist Faye Sultan testified during the trial that Wallace had been a victim of physical and mental abuse at the hands of his mother since birth, and that he had mental illness at the time of the killing. Sultan argued for a life sentence without parole instead of the death penalty. On July 7, 1997, Wallace was found guilty of 9 murders. On January 29th, he was handed 9 death sentences. Following his sentencing, Wallace made a statement to his victims' families. None of these women, none of your daughters, mothers, sisters, or family members in any way deserved what they got. They did nothing to me that warranted their death.
So, as of June 5th, 1998, Wallace married a former prison nurse, Rebecca Torjanos, in a ceremony next to the state's execution chamber. Imagine that.
Huh.
The Mecklenburg County Public Defender, Isabel Day, served as the official witness and photographer. She also was the attending manager of the death row unit at the prison. Since being sentenced to death in 1997, Wallace has appealed and overturned the death sentences.
To overturn. He has not had it overturned.
Okay. Stating that the confessions were coerced and his constitutional rights were violated in the process. The North Carolina Supreme Court upheld the sentences in 2000. The U.S. Supreme Court in 2001 denied his appeal. In 2005, Superior Court Judge Charles Lamb rejected Wallace's last appeal to overturn his convictions and death sentences. Wow. That's shocking. That's a piece of work.
I'm glad he's not. He's not going to be.
Well, guys, stay tuned. There is going to be a part 2 to this podcast.
There's a lot of serial killers here in our little state of North Carolina.
So we will be back shortly with part 2. Until then, thanks everybody, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you very much. Hurry back.